The door slammed shut, the lock clicked, and my heart stopped. I turned, expecting a fight or a prank. But there stood Ethan, my straight-as-an-arrow roommate, his blue eyes burning with something I'd never seen before. In that Seattle apartment, with rain drumming against the windows, everything I thought I knew about him and myself was about to unravel. My name is Caleb Nguyen, 24, a graphic designer scraping by in a city that's as vibrant as it is unforgiving. I'm Vietnamese American, openly gay, and used to navigating life's edges. Whether it's dodging microaggressions at work or hiding my crush on Ethan Harper, the 25-year-old barista and aspiring musician who's been my roommate for 8 months. Ethan's the kind of guy who lights up a room. Blonde, broad-shouldered, with a laugh that makes you feel like you're in on the joke. He's straight, or so I thought, and I've spent months convincing myself that my feelings for him were a one-way street to nowhere. It started innocently enough. We met through a Craigslist ad when I needed someone to split rent on this quirky Capitol Hill apartment. A third-floor walk-up with creaky floors and a view of Puget Sound on clear days. Ethan was broke but charming, always strumming his guitar or leaving half-finished coffee mugs around. I told myself I could handle living with someone like him. Keep it friendly, keep it distant, keep it safe. But late-night talks about music, family, and dreams had a way of blurring lines. I'd catch him looking at me sometimes, his gaze lingering a second too long, and I'd wonder, hope maybe, that there was more. That night, the rain was relentless, hammering the windows like it wanted to break in. I was sprawled on the couch, sketching logos on my tablet, when Ethan burst through the door, soaked from his shift at the coffee shop. His usual grin was gone, replaced by a tightness in his jaw. He didn't say a word, just crossed the room, locked the door, and turned to face me. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Caleb," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, "I need to tell you something." I sat up, my tablet sliding to the floor. "What's wrong? You okay?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he ran a hand through his wet hair, pacing like a caged animal. "I've been lying to you, to myself, to everyone." He stopped, his eyes locking onto mine. "I'm not who you think I am." My stomach twisted. Was he moving out? Had he figured out how I felt and was about to shut it down? I braced myself, but nothing could have prepared me for what came next. "I'm not straight," he said, the words tumbling out like they'd been trapped for years. "And I think I'm in love with you." The room spun. My heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. Ethan, the guy who dated girls, who flirted with customers, who I'd written off as untouchable, was standing there, baring his soul. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to scream, anything to process the impossible. But all I could do was stare. My voice caught somewhere between shock and hope. "Say something," he pleaded, stepping closer. "Please." I stood, my legs shaky. "Ethan, you can't just... How long have you known?" "Long enough to feel like a coward for not saying it sooner." He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening. "I grew up in a small town, Caleb. Church every Sunday, expectations carved into me like stone. I didn't know how to be this version of myself until I met you." His words hit like a tidal wave. I'd spent so long hiding my feelings, convincing myself he was out of reach, that this felt like a dream I didn't trust. But the way he looked at me, raw, unguarded, made it real. I took a step toward him, then another, until we were inches apart. The rain outside faded, and all I could hear was my own heartbeat. "Ethan," I said, my voice barely steady, "you have no idea how long I've wanted to hear this." His lips curved into a shaky smile, and for a moment, we just stood there, the weight of his confession hanging between us. Then he reached out, his hand brushing mine, and it was like a spark igniting everything I'd buried. I didn't think. I just leaned in, and when our lips met, it was like the world finally made sense. But life isn't a movie, and happy endings don't come that easy. As we pulled apart, breathless, I saw the fear creep back into his eyes. "There's more," he said, his voice trembling. "My family, they're coming to visit tomorrow. And they don't know." The weight of those words settled like a storm cloud. Ethan's family, conservative, religious, the kind of people who'd raised him to believe love like this was wrong. I'd grown up dodging judgment too, but my parents had come around, slowly, painfully. Ethan's hadn't. And now they were about to walk into our tiny apartment, into the truth we'd just uncovered. "What do we do?" I asked, my mind racing. He shook his head. "I don't know, but I can't hide anymore. Not from them. Not from you." That night, we talked until dawn, curled up on the couch, untangling years of fear and hope. Ethan told me about his childhood in rural Idaho, where being different wasn't just frowned upon. It was dangerous. I shared my own story, the years of feeling like I didn't belong, the slow journey to self-acceptance. By the time the rain stopped, we weren't just roommates anymore. We were something new, something fragile, something worth fighting for. But as the sun rose, casting golden light across the apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Ethan's family was coming, and with them, a reckoning neither of us was ready for. The morning after Ethan's confession, the apartment felt too small, like the walls were closing in. We'd barely slept, tangled in each other's arms on the couch, but the dawn brought reality crashing down. His family, his parents and older brother, were due in hours, and the weight of their expectations loomed like a guillotine. Ethan was a mess, pacing the kitchen while I made coffee. His hands shook as he tried to tie his shoelaces, his usual confidence replaced by a nervous energy that made my chest ache. "They're not bad people," he said, more to himself than to me. They don't get it. They never have." I set a mug in front of him, my fingers brushing his. "You don't have to tell them today. We can figure this out together." He looked at me, his blue eyes searching mine. "I want to. I'm tired of pretending, Caleb. But what if they hate me?" I wanted to promise it would be okay. But I knew better. My own coming out had been a battle, late-night arguments with my mom, my dad's silence for months. Acceptance came, but it was hard one. Ethan's family, from what he'd told me, was cut from a different cloth. Devout, traditional, the kind who saw the world in black and white. "Then we face it together," I said finally. "Whatever happens." He nodded, but the doubt in his eyes lingered. We spent the morning cleaning the apartment, a futile attempt to control the chaos. I caught Ethan stealing glances at me, like he was memorizing my face in case everything fell apart. Each look was a reminder of last night's kiss, the way it had felt like a promise. But promises are fragile, and we were about to test this one. The doorbell rang at noon, sharp and jarring. Ethan froze, his hand on the couch armrest. I squeezed his shoulder, whispering, "You've got this." He opened the door, and in walked the Harpers. His mom, Linda, was a petite woman in her 50s, with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. His dad, Greg, was a towering man with a handshake that could crush bones, his face etched with lines from years of hard work. Ethan's brother, Matt, 28, had the same blonde hair and broad shoulders, but his easy grin felt like a mask. They filled the apartment with small talk about the drive from Idaho, the Seattle traffic, the coffee shop where Ethan worked. I played the good roommate, offering drinks and laughing at the right moments, but my stomach churned. Lunch was takeout from a nearby Thai place, spread across our tiny dining table. Ethan was quiet, picking at his pad thai, while Matt dominated the conversation, teasing him about his hippie city life. Linda kept glancing at me, her curiosity polite but pointed. "So, Caleb," she said, "you're an artist, right? That must be interesting." I smiled, deflecting. "Graphic design, mostly. Pays the bills." Greg grunted, his first contribution to the conversation. "Art's a tough field. You got a backup plan?" I felt Ethan tense beside me. "He's good at what he does," he said a little too sharply. Matt raised an eyebrow and the table went quiet. The afternoon dragged on, the tension building like a slow-burning fuse. We took them on a walk through Pike Place Market, the crowded stalls and salty air a temporary distraction. Ethan stayed close to me, our shoulders brushing as we navigated the chaos. I wanted to hold his hand, to anchor him, but his family's presence felt like a spotlight. Back at the apartment, things unraveled. Matt, sprawled on the couch, started grilling Ethan about his music. "You still messing around with that guitar?" he said, his tone half teasing, half condescending. "When you gonna get a real job?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "It's not messing around. It's who I am." Linda stepped in, her voice gentle but firm. "We just want you to be secure, honey. This city's expensive, and you're not getting any younger." I saw the moment Ethan snapped. He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not like you, okay? I'm not gonna live the life you want for me." The room went still. Greg's face darkened. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ethan's hands were fists at his sides. "It means I'm done pretending. I'm not straight. I'm in love with Caleb." The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding. Linda gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Matt stared, his grin gone. Greg's face turned to stone. "Ethan," Linda whispered, "what are you saying?" "I'm gay," he said, his voice breaking but resolute. "And I love him." I reached for his hand, not caring who saw. His fingers gripped mine, trembling but strong. For a moment, it was just us, the world fading away. Then Greg stood, his chair clattering to the floor. "This is nonsense," he growled. "You're confused. This city, these people, they've messed with your head." "Dad, no," Ethan said, stepping forward. "This is me. It's always been me." Matt laughed, sharp and bitter. "You're throwing away everything for this?" "For him." I felt the sting of his words, but Ethan didn't flinch. "Yeah," he said. "For him. For me." Linda was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. "We raised you better than this," she said, her voice barely audible. The argument exploded from there. Shouts, accusations, years of unspoken truths spilling out. I stood by Ethan, my heart breaking for him, for us. When Greg stormed out, slamming the door, Linda and Matt followed, leaving silence in their wake. Ethan sank onto the couch, his face in his hands. I sat beside him, pulling him close. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Don't be," he said, his voice muffled. "I needed to do this." We stayed like that, holding each other, as the rain started again outside. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. We weren't alone anymore. The days after Ethan's coming out were a blur of raw emotion. Our apartment, once a sanctuary, felt like a battlefield littered with the wreckage of his family's rejection. Ethan was quieter, his guitar untouched, his usual spark dimmed. But he didn't pull away from me. If anything, he leaned in harder, like I was the only thing keeping him grounded. I tried to be strong for him, but I was scared too. I'd faced disapproval before, but this was different. His family's reaction wasn't just personal. It was a mirror of the world's cruelty, the kind that could break even the strongest of us. Still, we carved out moments of peace. Late at night, we'd lie on the couch, sharing stories of our pasts, our dreams, our fears. Each confession brought us closer, stitching us together in a way I hadn't thought possible. A week later, Ethan got a text from Matt. It was short, cold, "We need to talk." Alone. Ethan showed it to me, his face unreadable. "He wants to meet at the coffee shop tomorrow," he said. "I don't know if I can do this." "You don't have to," I said, my protective instincts flaring. "Not if it's gonna hurt you." He shook his head. "I need to know where he stands. He's my brother." The next day, I watched Ethan leave, his shoulders hunched against the Seattle drizzle. I wanted to go with him to shield him, but he insisted on going alone. I spent the morning at my desk, trying to focus on a client's logo design, but my mind kept drifting to Ethan. What was Matt saying? Would he try to drag Ethan back into the closet, back to Idaho, back to a life that wasn't his? When Ethan returned, his face was pale, but his eyes were clear. He sat across from me at the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "Matt's not like Dad," he said. "He's confused, maybe even angry, but he listened. He didn't walk away." "What did he say?" I asked, my heart in my throat. "He asked why I didn't tell him sooner. Said he felt like he didn't know me." Ethan's voice cracked. "I told him I was scared, that I didn't know how to be this person with them." I reached for his hand, and he squeezed it tight. "He didn't say he accepts it," Ethan continued. "But he didn't say he doesn't. He just needs time." Time. It was a fragile hope, but it was something. I pulled him into a hug, feeling the tension in his body slowly ease. "You're enough," I whispered. "Just as you are." That night, we went to a queer open mic night at a local bar, a place I'd been to a few times but never with Ethan. It was his idea, a way to reclaim some joy, to feel like we belonged somewhere. The bar was packed, the air thick with laughter and music. Ethan's eyes lit up as he watched a drag queen belt out a ballad, and for the first time in days he smiled, really smiled. When a poet took the stage, reciting lines about love and defiance, Ethan slipped his hand into mine under the table. "This is what I want," he murmured. "To live like this, out loud." I kissed his temple, my heart swelling. "Then let's do it. But the world has a way of testing you." A few days later, Ethan got a call from his mom. Her voice was shaky, apologetic, but firm. "We're coming back to Seattle," she said. "Your father wants to talk." Ethan's face drained of color as he hung up. "They're staying at a hotel downtown," he said. "They want me to come alone, but I don't want to do this without you." "Then don't," I said. "I'll be there, whatever you need." The meeting was set for a small cafe near their hotel, a neutral space that felt anything but. We arrived early, Ethan's hand sweaty in mine. When his parents walked in, the air shifted. Linda's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Greg's face was unreadable, his posture rigid. They sat across from us, the table a chasm. "Ethan," Linda started, her voice soft, "we've been praying about this. We love you, but we can't condone this lifestyle." Greg cut in, his voice gruff. "You're our son. We want you to come home, get help, fix this." Ethan's hand tightened around mine. "There's nothing to fix," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his fingers. "This is who I am. And Caleb, he's not the problem. He's the best thing in my life." I felt my throat tighten, pride and fear warring inside me. Linda looked at me, her expression a mix of sorrow and confusion. Caleb, you seem like a nice young man, but this isn't right. It's not what God wants. I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. Mrs. Harper, I respect your beliefs, but I love your son. And love, this kind of love, isn't wrong. It's the most honest thing I've ever known. Greg scoffed, but Linda's eyes softened, just for a moment. The conversation went in circles, scripture, tradition, pain. Ethan held his ground, his voice growing stronger with every word. By the end, no one had won, but no one had walked away either. It wasn't acceptance, but it was a crack in the wall. As we left the cafe, Ethan pulled me close, his breath warm against my ear. Thank you, he said, for being here. Always, I promised. That night, we lay in bed, the city humming outside. The future was still uncertain, but we had each other, and for now that was enough. Months passed, and our lives settled into a new rhythm. Ethan started playing his guitar again, filling the apartment with melodies that felt like hope. I landed a big freelance contract, enough to ease the financial strain. We were building something, a life, a love, a future. But the shadow of his family lingered, a reminder that not all battles are won in a single fight. Ethan kept in touch with Matt, their conversations cautious but growing. Matt even visited once, alone, and though it was awkward, he didn't flinch when Ethan introduced me as his boyfriend. It wasn't full acceptance, but it was progress. Linda called sometimes, her voice softer each time, like she was wrestling with her beliefs. Greg, though, remained a wall, silent, immovable. One evening, as we cooked dinner together, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was an email from his dad, the first contact in weeks. Ethan read it aloud, his voice unsteady. I don't understand you, but you're my son. I'm trying. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Ethan set the phone down, tears in his eyes. I didn't think he'd ever budge, he said. I pulled him into my arms. People surprise you sometimes. That spring, we decided to take a leap. Ethan got a gig at a local music festival, a chance to perform his songs in front of a real crowd. I'd never seen him so nervous or so alive. The night of the festival, I stood in the crowd, watching him take the stage, his guitar slung over his shoulder. He looked out at the sea of faces, found me, and smiled. This one's for someone special, he said into the mic, his voice carrying over the cheers. The song was raw, beautiful, a story of love and courage. I felt tears prick my eyes as he sang, his words weaving our story into every note. Afterward, we wandered the festival, hand in hand, the air alive with music and possibility. A group of queer kids approached us, drawn to Ethan's performance. They thanked him, said his song made them feel seen. I watched him light up, realizing his music could do more than entertain. It could heal. But life loves a plot twist. A week later, Ethan got a call from his old boss in Idaho, offering him a job managing a music store. It was a dream opportunity, stable, creative, everything he'd wanted. Except it meant moving back to the town that had suffocated him, the town where he'd hidden who he was. He told me about it over dinner, his voice quiet. It's a good job, Caleb, but I don't know if I can go back there. I set my fork down, my heart sinking. Do you want to take it? He looked at me, his eyes searching. I want us, but I also want to prove I can make it on my own terms. Not running away, not hiding. I nodded, swallowing the fear that he might leave. Then let's figure it out. Together. We spent days weighing the options. The job was tempting, but Idaho felt like a step backward. Seattle was home now, not just for me but for us. Ethan decided to turn it down, but the conversation sparked something bigger. He started talking about his music, about wanting to pursue it seriously, not just as a hobby. I encouraged him, even when doubt crept in mine and his. One night, as we sat on the fire escape, watching the city lights, he turned to me. "What if I fail?" he asked. "You won't," I said. "And if you do, I'll be here to pick you up." He kissed me then, slow and deep, like he was sealing a vow. "I don't deserve you," he murmured. "You do," I said. "We deserve each other." The next day, Ethan started reaching out to local venues, booking small gigs. I helped him design flyers, spreading the word on social media. Our apartment became a hub of creativity. Late nights filled with music, laughter, and the occasional argument about whose turn it was to do dishes. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Then came the letter. It was from Linda, handwritten, slipped into our mailbox without a word. "I've been reading," it began, "talking to people. I don't understand everything, but I want to try. Can we start over?" Ethan read it over and over, his hands trembling. "She's trying," he said, his voice thick. "She's really trying." I hugged him, feeling the weight of years lifting, just a little. "One step at a time," I said. That night, we danced in the living room. No music, just the rhythm of our heartbeats. The world outside could wait. For now, we had this. A year later, our apartment was still a mess of coffee mugs and guitar picks, but it felt like home in a way I'd never known. Ethan's music was taking off. Small venues turned into bigger ones, and his songs started popping up on local radio. I was proud, but more than that, I was in awe of the man he'd become. Fearless, open, unapologetically himself. His family was still a work in progress. Linda visited a few times, each meeting less tense than the last. She asked questions, listened, even laughed with us over dinner. Greg sent occasional texts, short but less cold. Matt came around the most, his teasing softer now, his acceptance unspoken but clear. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. One evening, as we walked along the Seattle waterfront, the sunset painting the sky in pinks and golds, Ethan stopped. He turned to me, his eyes bright with something I couldn't quite read. "Caleb," he said, "I've been thinking." "Oh," I teased, nudging him. "That's dangerous." He laughed, then grew serious. "I want to spend my life with you. Not just now, but always." My breath caught. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opening it to reveal a simple silver ring. "I know it's not legal everywhere, and I know it's a risk, but I love you, and I want the world to know it." Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, unable to speak. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and I pulled him into a kiss, the sound of waves and seagulls fading into the background. The ring was heavy, a promise of forever, but it felt right. We didn't have all the answers. The world was still messy, still cruel in places. But standing there, with Ethan's hand in mine, I knew we could face it. Together. That night, back in our apartment, we planned a small ceremony. Just us, a few friends, and maybe Matt if he could make it. It wasn't about the world's approval. It was about us, about love that had fought its way through fear and doubt to stand tall. As we lay in bed, Ethan's head on my chest, he whispered, "I never thought I'd have this." "Me neither," I said, kissing his forehead. "But I'm glad we do." The road hadn't been easy, and it wouldn't be. But every step, every fight, every moment of joy had led us here. And as I drifted to sleep, Ethan's warmth beside me. I knew one thing for certain. Love, real love, was worth every battle.